Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am pleased to introduce Matt Vercaigne, Field Product Specialist of Climate FieldView. He will be discussing how using digital tools will help manage through all the conditions. Take it away, Matt.
Perfect. Thanks, Ainsley. Hi, folks. To put it bluntly, 2021 was a challenging year, and it continues to be for those still wrapping up harvest and those beginning to plan for the 2022 season. During this last season, we saw everything under the rainbow: dry seeding conditions, wet seeding conditions in different areas. We saw dry and wet growing conditions throughout different regions in the country. We saw severe insect issues in some regions, and we saw challenging harvest in other regions, and you know what, not so bad in other areas of the country. Now with 2022 planning being at top of mind for growers and retailers, figuring out how to approach seed and input pricing and availability seem to be causing folks a lot of added confusion on how to proceed for this coming season. For today's session, I want to highlight how Climate FieldView can turn your data into insights to manage risk and address variability, as well as talk about recently released feature enhancements to our platform called Advanced Manual Scripting. Our platform continues to grow, and access to most of the leading technology providers can be accessed through our Climate FieldView platform. Our APIs range from imagery to insurance, so we likely partner with platforms you are already using. Combining your data into a singular location across a multitude of platforms will likely play an even more important role on managing operational variability and making informed decisions for this upcoming season. A great starting point for understanding yield variability across your operation is our Rainfall Summary tab found on the FieldView Full app. This summary page has a ton of great features to help you begin assessing field performance. You can sort any of the numerical columns from high to low or low to high. One of my favorite metrics on this display is the 10-year precipitation average. I especially like this metric for helping to understand the outcome of a treatment you may be testing within a given field. Your results could be more or less skewed based on how far away the field is from the long-term precipitation average. So something to keep in mind while analyzing trials on your operation. In Climate FieldView, you can easily conduct a yield analysis for your entire operation at the field level and by variety to determine what is working best for your operation. The easiest way to use this tool is to first select whether you want to analyze your operation from a field-to-field basis or analyze across varieties within a given crop type. To change how you want to approach this, just select your crop type in the top right corner and use the slider in the top middle of the screen to customize this dashboard. Now, diving deeper into how to make the most of analyzing trials, we'll spend a bit of time reviewing the functionality of our Field Region Report tool. Field Region Report can be used almost in endless ways, looking at hybrid or variety trials, seeding rate, seeding speed, seeding depth, seeding date, fertility trials, herbicide trials, fungicide trials, and even pre-harvest herbicide trials. As long as the data is present in your account and collected through the drive or imported via data inbox, you can run an analysis on it. Step one is to open the CAB app, select the field that you want to analyze, and then select the map layer you want to look at. In this case, we're looking at a corn hybrid map. Step two is to tap the More button in the top right part of the screen and go down to Create Field Region. Next step is to choose what kind of polygon you want to use. You have three options: freehand, polygon, or select pass. Personally, I like to use select pass as I feel it gives me the best control of the data I want to include in my region. and also allows me to trim up seeder or combine passes to eliminate junky data, like around headlands or potholes. Step 4, you then select the passes that you want to analyze, making those trimming adjustments as you go. Then complete the process and save the region with a name and region color. I like to align my region color with my hybrid color for easier, quick reference. On the summary page, once the region has been successfully created, it will display the metrics such as harvested area, moisture, and dry yield. It will also give you a breakdown of area bucketed into different elevation zones if you have a larger elevation change across your field. This helps to make sure that when comparing treatments on a field, that you're taking a representative sample of each treatment. Let's take a few minutes and run through a real-world example of how field region reports can be a valuable tool to get an accurate understanding of your field trial data. In this example, we have treated wheat seed versus untreated, orange being treated and blue being untreated. As you can see from the seeding layer data, the comparison was conducted on the east side of this field and not in the middle or with multiple replications in the field, which for the most part is a fairly standard and common practice for on-farm run trials. Why I draw your attention to this is because of the different ways the data can be analyzed in FieldView or using another digital ag platform. When we split screen the seeding layer data with the yield data from this field, you can clearly see that something is impacting the yield as a gradient of the yield increases from east to west in the field, indicated by the darker green regions on the right-hand picture. Now, this could be attributed to the seed treatment, but does it seem appropriate to be comparing 120 acres of treated seed to 20 acres of untreated seed? I would argue no. It would be an unbalanced comparison, which could lead us to an incorrect conclusion about the performance of our seed treatment. If we use the generic yield field report by selecting the calendar looking button in the top right hand corner of the screen, we can see that the treated area is 126 acres and the untreated area is 19 acres. Our treated area is averaging 80.7 bushel an acre across the entire field, and our untreated wheat is 73.1 bushel an acre. So pretty large difference in performance from treated to untreated. As a grower, we would know if this field is relatively uniform or not, and whether to trust this basic summary data. But for the sake of argument, let's assume that we know the west side of this field traditionally performs better than the east. Might be because of better drainage, topography, different soil type, could be a multitude of different things. So assuming that we know there's some sort of gradient impacting yield in this field outside of just the seed treatment alone, I would propose to use our field region report tool as a better way to understand the true treatment impact. How I like to accomplish this is to first look at where the two treatments meet in the field. This point should serve as our basis for the treatment comparison. From there, we follow the same steps outlined before to create the regions. We tap the More button and choose the passes we want to use for each region. What I like to do is split screen the data layer I'm interested in with the yield data. This allows me to use my crosshairs on the screen to line up exactly which combine passes fall into which treatment. For example, I don't want to use the combine passes where the two treatments intersect in the field, as the combine pass would have both treated and untreated grain coming into the combine yield monitor at the same time. So not usable data for determining which treatment is better. The other call out I want to make is that by using region report, I can select enough combine passes of each treatment so that my comparable area of the treatment is roughly equivalent. So after completing those steps for each treatment, I can see now that my results have changed from the original full field summary. My treated wheat now averaged 68.2 bushel an acre, and the untreated wheat was 68.9. So it turns out that the seed treatment might not have been as profitable as what we originally thought. Now, in saying that, I would still recommend caution on making large operational decisions based on one field and one site year of data. I would encourage growers and agronomists that want to conduct trials to replicate a minimum of 2 times within the same field, and also to try to replicate the trial in more than just one field or variety, or by whatever factor may be impacting the outcome the most. Okay, next up, we get to dive into a newly released updated feature called Advanced Manual Scripting. This feature update was released a few weeks ago to all Climate FieldView Pro users. For those that have used our manual scripting tool in the past, what we've aimed to do is to simplify the process of making a prescription by really removing the manual out of the manual scripting process. So what this improved feature now enables our Climate FieldView users to do is to use their scouting imagery data layer to auto-generate production zones within the field. The first step in the process is to click the prescriptions tab in the top left corner of the Climate FieldView web app, select which field and which production year you want to create the script for, and then click Create New Prescription. Step 2 is to select what kind of prescription you want to make: fertility, planting, or protection. The fertility tab will give you the options to change the product you are wanting to variable rate in the field, as well as the units that your equipment will execute it as. The planting option is only available for corn and soybean at this time, utilizing the scouting map. And the only units available right now are thousands of seeds per acre, not pounds per acre. We would recommend corn folks to continue utilizing FieldView seed scripts instead of this tool, as the zone creation model is more accurate as it takes into account yield data and other data layers within FieldView seed scripts, whereas this tool is only utilizing scouting imagery. And protection is obviously for crop protection, so likely for fungicides, but herbicides could also be used in this tool for particular use cases. Once you've selected which type of script you want to make, it'll take you to a new page where you can select how you would like to make your production zones. Use as your base layer for the prescription. What I would recommend doing before you decide to create a prescription for a field is to first in the normal data layer viewer back on the home page. And you can do this on any of the apps. Why I suggest doing this is because you want to ensure that the scouting map is accurate and that the biomass zones are truly representative of what's happening in the field. So ensuring it's not a weed patch or a cloud or something along those lines. Why I also recommend doing a pre-check is because it would be an excellent time to figure out which of the scouting map dates most closely correspond to your yield map, as that might be your basis for the decision on what you want to script. So if you're planning to do crop protection scripts in 22, what I'd recommend is to select the appropriate scouting map as close as possible to your planned application date, essentially at peak biomass before flowering occurs in most cases. For step 5, you have the option to select how many zones you'd like to have auto-generated. The options are between 2 and 12 zones. The number of zones will vary depending on what you're trying to accomplish. For fertility and planting, you may want to use between 3 and 5 zones or more. For crop protection, if you're executing a binary on-off script, we actually want you to use 5 zones, and I'll elaborate more on that in a few more slides. Once you've selected how many zones you'd like, a summary list will show how many acres are dedicated per zone. Now, an important note here, the zones, when you get to this step, are listed in order of smallest acreage to largest acreage, not by order of biomass ranking. So zone 1 may or may not be the highest or lowest biomass zone. To determine which zone is high biomass, click on the zone on the left-hand part of the screen, and the corresponding zone will be highlighted on the map. And I'll walk through assigning the correct rate to the correct zone in a few more slides. Next step is to define some parameters for your script. This page will look slightly different depending if you're creating a fertility, planting, or protection script, but the basics are all the same. On this page, you'll define what kind of product you're using, whether it's liquid, granular, herbicide, fungicide, etc. You'll also assign what the product is, and you'll also assign a planned application date. Not super critical to get the exact date right, but it'll give you a quick reference place to look if you're making multiple scripts for the same field. And finally, you'll give the prescription a file name. The tool will auto-generate a file name for you consisting of the field name and the planned application date, and feel free to change that however you see fit. One call out I'll make before we move into the final steps is that if you want to create a script with a tank mix of 2 or more products, you can do that. To add multiple products after you've entered your first type of crop protection product, select the type of crop protection product again and pick the second item you want to add, whether it be another fungicide or perhaps an insecticide. The last steps are now to assign your product rates to the corresponding zones. If you're doing a fertility script like in this example, just input the rate you want applied in each of the 5 zones, and you can obviously change which units you're using, whether it's gallons per acre, pounds per acre. In order to see your biomass zones overlaid with the zones that are blank on your screen when you first come to this page, in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, select Change Map and select the scouting layer that you use to generate the zones. If you can't remember the select date that you chose to generate the map, look in the top left-hand corner of this page on the screen, and you'll there's an icon there that tells you which date you selected to generate. And also remember, the zones 1 to 5 still on this page are listed in order of size in acreage, not associated with the level of biomass. So if you hover your cursor over the zones 1 to 5 on the left side of this page, it'll highlight that zone for you on the map. Earlier I mentioned that if you want to create a binary on-off prescription for your fungicide applications, for example, you would still create a 5-zone map, but you would now merge together the top 3 biomass zones and your lowest 2 biomass zones to create a 2 production zone map. The reason we suggest using this method is that by selecting only 2 zones on the previous page, you essentially split your field 50-50, which is likely too aggressive for reducing your fungicide application. By using the 5-zone merge method, you achieve a more conservative prescription with spraying between 80 and 95% of the field in general. That value will obviously change depending on the field variability. If you want to be very conservative, you could merge the top 4 biomass zones and leave the lowest red biomass zone as the non-apply area. So you have options. Also, if you're not happy with the auto zone creation, you still have the ability to draw and merge custom lines within the script to create a more accurate script. The automation is just there to get you from a starting base, and from there you can modify it if you feel that you see fit that it needs some adjustment. This is where you'll have to use your field knowledge and disease risk assessment to determine how much unsprayed area you're comfortable with leaving. And if we end up having a wet year in, say, 2022, you may want to consider still applying a fungicide to the entire field and keeping this tool in your back pocket for a drier season. So that's where the evaluation needs to come from a field-to-field level. In this, this is an example of what a binary on-off script would look like using the 5-zone merge method. The green area is set to 40 liters per acre, and the red zone, which had our lowest biomass readings, gets a 0 rate applied. The minimum size that a zone can be is 0.15 acres. So you'll see a bit of a blending effect if you have a bunch of small patchy areas within your field. For those folks that have participated in the targeted fungicide application study over the last few years, we've dug in and examined how close the new method of zone creation compares to what we've done in the past using a different workflow. And I'm happy to report that the method produces almost identical results to what we've done in the past. So we can say with confidence that this method works for generating production zones based on a scouting biomass layer. Here's a quick GIF on the step-by-step process to create an automated zone script. The total process consists of 4 pages. Once you run through a couple of example fields of your own, you'll pick it up pretty quickly and be able to pump through a script in about 5 minutes. It really becomes intuitive once you get the hang of it. And one final comment I'll make, which is connecting all the pieces to the puzzle, is exporting your script to your machinery. Once the script is created and saved, you'll see it in your prescription list when you go back to the home page and select prescriptions. From there, select the prescription, click export, and then you'll see a large drop-down list of all the compatible machinery that you can export to. And if your piece of machinery isn't on that list, you can still export as a generic shapefile. So with that, thank you very much for your time today. Myself and the team are really excited to see how our summary tools and new prescription building features can help you make an informed and dynamic plan for your 22 season. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Matt. That was great. So we have a couple extra minutes now. We can open the floor to any questions our attendees might have. Feel free to post your questions in the chat or on FeedLoop or on Zoom, and I can help read them out to you. Doesn't look like there's any questions as of now.
And if folks always think of questions afterwards, my email should be available in one of the pages somewhere. And yeah, if you know your local TSM, CBM, DIS, they're also very knowledgeable and can help out with this process or questions.
Yeah. For sure. And our attendees feel free to head over to the exhibitor hall where they can see Climate FieldView's booth or the networking tab, which they can connect with you, Matt, one-on-one.
Perfect.
Oh, actually, we got a question. What's the most exciting thing coming down the pipeline?
Ooh, good question. The most exciting thing is for the 2022 season, I would say one of the most exciting things that we have is obviously this advanced manual scripting tool. I think that there's a lot of different possibilities and use cases that can be realized, and it'll take a lot of exploring to see what possible options are there. Obviously, you know, there's kind of endless possibilities with the fungicide scripting, and even just within that, whether you want to do a binary variable ratings for the fertility. Other things that are coming down the pipe, obviously looking at performance guarantees on products and in the early stages of evaluation on how that might look from a trialing standpoint, and yeah, outcome based offers that would come into the marketplace. So there's lots of different exciting things coming. And there was just an announcement today that Bayer and Microsoft are entering into a partnership to help with new transformation of digital enablement for a lot of the back end work that we do. We feel like partnering with Microsoft is really going to help elevate the advancements that we get to make and speed up the process. So we're really excited to be partnering with Microsoft on that moving forward.
Great, yeah, that's exciting. We have another question here saying, are you exploring crop protection scripting with drones?
Oh, very good question. So we from exploring it in terms of making sure that our export options are valid for UAVs and drones for spraying. Depends on the drone that you're talking about, what kind of file format you need it in. But there should be options for exporting as a generic shape file. And again, depends on the UAV and what file format they need it in, but you would have options with a generic shape file to potentially export that into a drone, and then it'd be depending on the drone's capabilities whether it would be able to execute or not. You know, doing a variable rate might be a bit more challenging for the drone, but a binary on-off should be pretty straightforward for it to execute.
All right, well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions. But thanks again so much, Matt, for presenting and for your informative presentation. I hope everyone else has a very good rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Perfect. Thanks, Ainsley, and thanks to everybody attending today. Looking forward to connecting in the future.